Ah, fuck. Hi. Shit. Aloha, nerds, and welcome back to another episode of TheSalawag's Why It's Great Gut Reaction, where I watch things and react from the gut. I'm the latest, but not yet the greatest, pretentious nerd to violate your autoplay. Wow, what a great pilot! What a great first episode. You might, if you have been watching, I don't know why you would. Don't. If you have been watching, you may have noticed I did not do a review for WandaVision or Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Not that those shows didn't deserve love; they definitely got love from all the YouTube podcasts I watch. So I just kind of felt like, I don't really need to dip my toes into everything. I really wanted to talk about this show. I'm trying to make the most premium version of myself possible. I'm not going to react to everything that's out there. I'm just going to react if I feel it deserves reaction. And I gotta say, I think Loki, the first episode by itself, totally deserves some Why It's Great love. Up front, if you don't know what this show is, Loki is about the brother of Thor from the Avengers, bad guy. Did lots of bad things across 23 movies of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where our favorite heroes, Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Hulk, have been duking it out with all the baddies like Ultron and all that. And this show in particular takes place after Avengers Endgame, the penultimate conclusion to the Infinity Saga, which across, again, about 22 movies, we saw characters interact with or somehow involved with Infinity Stones, where Thanos, the Mad Titan, wants to bind all these stones together and snap half of life out of existence. And in Avengers Endgame, the Avengers, having failed to save half the life of all the universe, have banded together and used time travel. They developed time travel, Back to the Future style, and they go back and collect all the Infinity Stones across time, and they create lots of little accidental situations where the universe can variant, in essence. And Loki is about the variant from when the Avengers Endgame, which takes place 2018, 2019, or no, takes place technically 2023. Go back to the first Avengers film in 2012 and steal what they did not realize at the time was an Infinity Stone and take it back. And when they do that, unfortunately, they completely fumble the ball, and the Infinity Stone, who gets into Loki's hand. Loki is chained up. The Avengers have just arrested him after he attempted to bomb and take over New York City in a first-stitch effort to conquer planet Earth. So they kicked Loki's ass and had him locked up. But then the future Avengers, interfering with this moment, slip in, and because this is the last moment they remembered having access to the cube, that's why they went to this time, because this is the moment of exchange where they're going to hand the case off to the bad guys from the next Marvel movie, Captain America Winter Soldier. But this exchange is completely the ball is completely fumbled here, and the Tesseract gets in the hands of Loki, who, chained up, grabs the Tesseract, and he knows that the Tesseract has the ability to transport you anywhere in space. And so he uses it, gets himself out of there. And unfortunately, this is a big mess up. They have totally screwed up the timeline, and they have no choice but to go further back in time to attempt to get themselves out of this particular situation. So that's that scenario in Avengers Endgame that leads us to Loki, which starts us off with, where did Loki go? and he pops up somewhere in Mongolia and tries to conquer the first people he sees, and in the middle of trying to be important, the time police come and arrest him. So he's arrested again. We're meeting Loki like the cops, the post cops episode where we go on, the limited edition. What happened to you, Loki? Well, you see, when I was younger, I really was obsessed with killing people for the sake of getting power. And essentially, this whole episode is about that little stupid joke that I just did. The time police collect Loki, and this episode is about Loki. Essentially, he's going to finally pay for his crimes, and one of the time police stops him from facing his final judgment, which looked like death. I don't know. And Loki gets taken around the place, and the time cop, who's played by Owen Wilson, shows him his life. He shows him what happens. He shows him all the spoilers that happened in the previous 20 movies. Like, hey, awesome. So for those of you who have never seen an MCU movie, if you're just coming into it, you can seriously sit down and watch Loki and just follow Loki. It's just Loki's story. So you're not seeing any other Avengers, really. I mean, you'll see them in the flashbacks, but you won't. Loki's not interacting with any other major Marvel characters that we've already known. It's really just him and Owen Wilson going back and forth. It's very much like a classic TV show or movie sort of comedy duo scenario, where you've got good cop and the criminal, and what's going to happen between these two. Because ultimately, spoilers, but it's in the trailer, ultimately, Loki is going to be offered a job to work for the time police to stop a bad guy. So we're getting a villain to anti-hero storyline, so it seems. What I love about this episode is that it throws you a lot of, if you're familiar with film and television from the last 10 or 20 years, this movie throws out a lot of cards that says which way the show could go. And especially if you're familiar with time travel movies, again, a lot of little cards are being thrown out to say, hey, which movie do you think we're going with? It could be anything, or we could do something completely different. We'll see. The show is a fun, very entertaining examination of the Loki character. So, while it is a talkie, for I know some of you may be wanting an action show, but I think what Marvel tried to do is really give that to you with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because there was the expectation of a Captain America type of movie there. They tried to give you all that action in that show. And I definitely think they succeeded on the whole. But with Loki, I think, again, if you're expecting that level of spectacle and action, the show very smartly keeps it very intimate right away. So even though you're not seeing any major action sequences in this first episode, you're going to have a good time, because they find a way to make limitations so that make sense and aren't just, oh, well, you just did that, so he's vulnerable at the last second. I think that's the worst problem with a lot of superhero stuff, especially, is that you always sort of arbitrarily depower or overpower someone in order to do something. It's often not very clever or very interesting. But in this case, because you go with the concept of time police, and they are used to dealing with people who have superpowers, so they just have devices and gimmicks that allow them to beat the people with superpowers, and the major device being time itself. So it's really fun how they depower Loki and allow you to accept that you're not getting, hey, why isn't Loki throwing blades and fighting gigantic monsters like Thor? You know what I mean? Because, that is what he does in all of the movies. Literally all the movies, he is stabbing something gigantic. And so why isn't that happening in this first episode about your title character Loki, and it's just very much establishes something that you can relate to if you haven't seen the MCU, but also why there's not big action. It's because it's taken a more of a comedy approach. There's a very much this feels like a buddy comedy, uh, but like I forget but Wes Anderson style, like subtly Wes Anderson style, and then you have Owen Wilson being the good cop, Agent Mobius, which sounds like Morbius to me. But I don't know. I'm a normie, as the young Rippa would say. I'm a normie. I didn't actually read these comics. I just love the movies and shows. Uh, but yeah, like I said, very entertaining. So if you haven't seen any of this stuff, you can come into Loki and just be entertained by the characters. And don't worry, they will recap everything you need to know about this character from the last 20 movies. So don't worry. And they'll recap it without spoiling the other movies. I mean, the recap itself will be the spoiler, but you can still watch those movies and be totally enthralled by whatever happens. It's really focused on Loki. It's hyper focused on his experience and how he sees everything, and that's where we're getting to. So, without spoiling anything, I definitely recommend Loki. It's very entertaining. Some of the best gags in here with time is when they arrest him, they put a collar around his neck. Actually, well, let me tell you, one of the best gags is right in the first scene. We get the appearance of Wunmi Mosaku. I hope I'm saying that right. Fantastic actress. She was in Batman v Superman as the poor woman saying, "Superman burned our village to the ground." I mean, we didn't see what happened and what you're talking about, but okay, he burned your village to the ground. That's terrible. In that movie, you really don't know what she's talking about at all, but it's just like, it feels like you just kept it in because it was such a great performance and you needed to motivate everything anyway. But she was great. And then I also saw her in a really interesting show called Lovecraft Country. I'm working on, I'm thinking about doing that show versus another show, because that's a lot of show to talk about. But she has one of the, I would say, most controversial roles of the show. I mean, I don't even know where that would fall into in today's time, in today's PC time, where Lovecraft Country would fall. It so goes such a anti-PC way. Anyway, she is great in that, and she appears as the sort of lead security cop girl. She's like a SWAT cop type of deal, and she appears with other SWAT time cop people. And I guess they go deal with the variant situations, and Loki tries to pull a move on her, and she whacks him in the face, and then he in slow motion feels the agony, but he's literally moving in slow motion because it's like a time baton. You get hit and then you get slowly thrown back by it. And that was just up front. That is trippy. Like, that's how you depower Loki? Okay, a time weapon would be perfect, assuming he didn't go straight for the illusion and try to fool them, which you would think he would do. But, he's having an egotistical moment, and so that's really why he's trying to face her hand to hand, as opposed to using his known trick of the illusion. Because he just got his butt handed to him by the Hulk, so he's really feeling insecure and needs to beat somebody. and learns right away that does not happen. While moving in slow motion, Wunmi throws... I mean, I don't even know if that's her character's name. I just know she was fantastic in that other stuff, so I'm calling her her actress name, her real name. She throws the collar around his neck, and, just like Deadpool, it depowers him. And not only does it depower him, but it's essentially almost like a dog collar. She can bring him back with that thing. But just opening with that gag, that was fantastically funny. Like, that was a great opening gag. So, trust me, if you like just the beginning of this episode, just give it that first 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever that is. If you like the beginning of this episode, you're gonna like Loki because it's nothing but gags like that. All time gags, really great visual effects, simple, old school effects could accomplish what happens here. Uh, really fun show. So yeah, so without saying anything more, if you want my recommendation, because this is just a recommendation show, I don't thumbs down things on this show. Well, I thumbs down things I'm not talking about on the show, but I don't thumbs down what I'm talking about. Whatever the focus of the show is not what I'm here to, say negative things about. So if you want the recommendation, should I watch this show? If I haven't seen Marvel, can I watch it? Yeah, 100%. And if you are a nerd, whether you're a real nerd who reads the comics or you're just kind of a normie nerd who loves the toys and movies, I'm happy to do so. If you're a nerd, and you've been following, you're gonna have a great time. In many ways, I feel that this pilot by itself, because it could all take a nosedive from here. I hope it doesn't. But sometimes the first episode's the best in a show, and I just feel like in the moment, let's celebrate that. So now we're getting into the why it's great aspect of Loki, because I'm gonna just nerd out. This is the nerding out, geeking out session that may sometimes be boring. So for those of you not here for that, run now! Run! It's gonna get nerdy and boring. Okay? You were warned now. Nerdiness, boredom. Ah. Okay, so the geeking out period has begun. I love this show, man. Come on, it's a Saturday morning. This is my Saturday morning cartoon is finally in live action. I'm so happy. Like, oh, I'm a little geeky. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna be candid. You want the reaction? Why didn't you talk about WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier? That seems kind of questionable. Well, first of all, okay, we'll go in order. Okay, WandaVision. I thought the first 6 episodes, fantastic. It wasn't enough for me to do a reaction because I could tell they were going for something, and I just kind of wanted to see where they were going with it. I thought, that first lot of episodes, I think the last 2.5, really great stuff, not the best handling. You know what I mean? So what I was waiting for, I didn't quite feel like they landed the bird or the fish. No, they didn't land the fish. That's the phrase. That's the correct phrase. They did not land the fish. But the final scene was great. But I thought, overall, definitely the whole package was good. I think both are good. Both are good. But WandaVision, overall, the package was good. I really love the gimmick of going back through the TV shows. And they're going back through the TV shows, actually, you could say, hey, where was Urkel? You know what I mean? Like, hey, you could have done, but then that would be racist because that would be whitewashing. WandaVision was, I loved the first few episodes. I loved the first half. I thought the build-up, all the setup I love the gimmick of the old TV shows, the old sitcoms, the old couples shows. I thought that was all really well handled. Especially that first episode. I thought, wow, you really did something there that was retro, but creatively delightful for those characters, because in these shows we're getting all these side characters of the movies, and Loki would be the only one who I would say is like basically a main character who's pretending to be a side character, especially now. But I think, with WandaVision and with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, these guys were the side characters, and Wanda was the side character. Falcon was the side character. Wanda's the side. She still gets scenes, but it's like oh you're very tiny character in these movies, and so it was cool to see almost like a love letter to characters that again the real nerds who've read this stuff. You guys know these guys, so this is my little window into what you guys love. I'm like oh, so things like this happen to the comics, but not this way. Well, this is interesting. Okay, even if maybe the translation's not 100% accurate, it's kind of cool to get the window. I think obviously I think at this point or from this point on, Marvel should just start adapting these things directly because we're so knee deep in the knowledge of the Marvel universe now. Even if we don't know the true stories, we know the character names and we know where they come from, and I think you can just adapt from this point on. You don't need to generate. You can modernize, but still just directly adapt these stories because I would love to see now like the actual version of WandaVision done. I'd love to see what that could be. The Vision and a little robot family. I would love to see that because I think WB is killing it with these animated adaptations because we didn't get the live action Dark Knight Returns, which sorta was promised. But they gave it to us in animation form. Like, okay, thank you. Like, let's do more of that. But Marvel, since you are taking the lead in how to do these movies and shows, I think at this point now you've given us so much. You've given us all the normies so much. I think you can just adapt and not have to worry about whether we can follow anymore. Because now you've got us there. Scarlet Witch and WandaVision ends with Scarlet Witch being Scarlet Witch, which is like, oh shit, okay, because I actually know what she's called, but at the same time I didn't read it, so I have this conflicted feeling of, do I care about whether her name is in there? And then when it actually comes out, I was like, oh, okay, cool, I am fine with this. Marvel had to do the work. Warner Brothers had this whole thing around Superman and Batman, and they tried to do it with Steel, but I think because Steel was not the success they wanted, and then they waited so long to do Green Lantern. The fear of their own characters. That's the problem. You're afraid of your own material. Of course, you're failing. But Marvel, took the lead. Blade, X-Men, Spider-Man, back in 1998, 2002, all that. Marvel took the lead in really how to tell these stories, and then because the companies took it really made a suffocating environment for these movies, Marvel, Kevin Feige had to take the lead again with itself in order to make something even vaguely close to the comic book material. But they still had the challenge of how do we get the normies in, because that's the money that's going to make this possible. Because the normies who don't have the knowledge need something accessible. And now we have all this wealth of knowledge that I can watch WandaVision and be like, give me more of that character. I liked that character. Thank you very much. So WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier both have the same delightful quality of, hey, I finally get more of this character that I wasn't getting in the movie because they were the side character in those movies. And they're not, apparently we're not going to get their own movie. I think, think about it now. Falcon should have just gotten his own movie. If you're going to introduce a character, even if they are maybe the side character in the Captain America comic, but they have their own comic, you might as well. You should have just made that person's movie back then. But I think part of the issue was that that Marvel or Kevin Feige was trying to get to Infinity War on a certain timetable, and I think it was probably dragged out because it made more sense to drag it out. So I think we lost a lot of that. But also, these movies are so expensive, and you're trying to do the ones that, again, give you the biggest spectacle, but also most accessible, in the most accessible way, because you still got to get the normie, like the normie who's never heard of it before. Which is also, that's the Marvel method. That's Stan Lee's method. The normie who's never heard of it before needs to be able to walk in the present time, in the present timescape of what's going on in our current reality, and be able to watch this and follow what's going on. So that's why you lose so much. But then we get validated with now Scarlet Witch is called Scarlet Witch, and now Vision is called Vision. You know, well, he was called Vision before, but they just kind of awkwardly called him Vision as opposed to him saying, "My name is Vision." You know, they just avoided the question, and everyone just calls him Vision. Okay, yeah, rocky aspects of Marvel. But yeah, it was cool to see the gimmick. It was nice to see them. Essentially, WandaVision was them ferrying us from the Normieville to the Nerdyville. Like, this is what the character's called. We were too shy and embarrassed and couldn't quite work out how to call her in a natural way before. But we figured it out. This was the right way to do it. Bada bing, bada boom. This is the timeline as seen by the Time Watchmen people. So fantastic, really cool WandaVision. And Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I thought, wow, I have mixed feelings on that one. I do feel like, I'll say this about Loki. I feel Loki does what I wish they had done with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Because I think, again, just reacting from the gut, good show on the whole. I think it, it does try to confront issues in society, the perception of black people, stuff like that. And, I'm sorry if that's been your experience. I'm sorry about that. That's really fucked up. I did talk about this with my friend who is black, and I talked about how I just wanted more out of the character in that show. I felt like to take this left turn and suddenly be so current was very shocking for me, because it's a very relevant show. I don't know, you know what I mean? Because I go to work and I work with people of every color under the sun, and we all get along, you know what I mean? So for me, my experience is not, I don't see that side of that experience. I feel like everyone treats everyone with respect, and that's all I can ask for, you know what I mean? And I try not to discriminate against anyone. So I think there's pockets of people not experiencing these things, at least not to that extreme. Whereas the show Falcon and the Winter Soldier, although we get fantastic Falcon action sequence, fantastic. That show, the first episode, fantastic Falcon action sequence, which really, even though it was a bit ridiculous, justified the need for that particular gimmick, and still made it look kind of military cool. To me, as a normie, I think I look at superheroes and I kind of want to see a more functional version of it. I think they made sense as entertaining comic book characters, but once again, the big problem is once you see regular human beings in it, it makes you look twice. You know what I mean? As this is drawing, it doesn't matter. It's all fantasy. But what I wanted, I really wanted, Falcon and the Winter Soldier by the 5th episode has Sam interacting with his family and seeing them in their regular world, and we even see him bond with Winter Soldier, and I wanted that up front. I do understand that the show, the creators felt they needed to sort of go back and get the characters there, but I kind of wanted that up front. I was just not interested in the baggage between the two characters to begin with. Not at all. I was like, I don't care. You two don't even, besides fighting, you two don't interact. I don't care. I have whatever, if you guys have problems, whatever. I feel like if Captain America had died, if this were a movie, we would just skip to episode 5 anyway. Like, the baggage would have to close because you guys saved the world together. He's on your side. If this were a movie, you would start right there. But at the same time, something that happened in WandaVision that took me off was the appearance of Monica Rambeau, where they bum rushed the exposition of what happened to her mother and the whole cancer experience. I just thought, as someone who's had a parent in that situation And I'm not saying that the writers didn't or anything like that. But that just is just one of those movie TV show things where you totally the severity of that experience has a certain level of weight that you need to respect and appreciate. To rush through that stuff in a show, A, wow, to people who've been through it, and B, is like, well, shouldn't the show go that way and explore that just a little bit if you're gonna have that heavy of a starting, like, oh, mom had cancer, survived surgery, but still died later of cancer. Like, thank you, that felt great. Thank you for starting with that. Uh, thanks, Marvel. But at the same time, when she came back, because she's one of the people that Thanos snapped out of existence, when she came back, they also bum rushed through being back. And it was just, I felt like there was not enough actual reaction to, hey, you blinked out of existence right in front of me. You know what I mean? You're still alive. What the hell? You know what I mean? I think we really like to have a character have that much going on and to not explore that even a little bit. I felt she really needed to be the main character of the not WandaVision television show pocket universe, because we have a pocket universe that is, and we're dealing with the multiverse now. We have a pocket reality that is this WandaVision sitcom universe that changes to a different sitcom every day. But in our reality, Monica Rambeau should have been the main character of that, because she's dealing with the loss and Wanda's dealing with the loss. But then Kat Dennings then takes charge, and she's incredibly entertaining. And again, I felt like at the very least it should have been a Monica Rambeau Kat Dennings partnership and not a half partnership or a semi, because it feels like the diversity hired team. You know what I mean? I don't like you've bum rushed all these expositional emotional moments in order to make the audience have a diversity hired team. That's what it feels like. Tell that story. Tell that Monica Rambeau story. And if you're hoarding it for that show, okay, but it's one of the things that drags down this particular show. You see my criticism here. So I felt like, have her be the main character of the real reality, leading the charge to figure out what's going on, but have her doing it as a part of her job and have her agents there and all that stuff as a part of her job, and not have this weird, the man is looking over my shoulder and doing bad things, which is like fine, but because you're not really spending enough time with her to understand how weird her organization's acting, it all just comes off very flimsy. She should have been the main character, and again, deal with what my problem with this movie is. Even Spider-Man Far From Home doesn't quite deal with an event like Thanos snapping and half of all life disappearing. I think we need a show, or at least have characters in each show where each one there's somebody affected by, good God, you faded away. You know what I mean? You faded away. And I felt like because they bum rushed through that with Monica Rambeau, we needed that for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I felt like it would have been fantastic to see that event from his point of view, because essentially Loki picks up immediately after he gets the Tesseract in Avengers Endgame, which takes place in Avengers 2012. But it's an immediate, this event triggers this show, and the consequences are the start of Loki. And I felt that with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. To me, there was this whole gap here. Wait, you're one of the ones who faded away. You know what I mean? And although, again, I don't think, again, Wanda's such the side character, it doesn't even matter to me that she just pops up and has her own show, because she was the side character. How else were you going to get her to be the main character? Because you weren't not giving her a movie, but she's getting a show. But I think that's cool, because you have these characters who have so much to talk about, you kind of just need a show to go through all of it. But, Falcon, I'm like, being that you're side cast main character, you're man, I would have loved to see when he comes back in the field and how that feels. You know what I mean? And just that tactile experience of, dude, we're close enough to you. You could start us there, and we'll totally get it. And we don't even need Doctor Strange appearing or anything, but just having him, come back to life and just have his sister go, Jesus, you're alive. Like, I've mourned you for 5 years. Just have the character deal with everything that happened, and have him come back to work after surviving Endgame, and the weird feeling of like half your staff looking at you like, and looking at other staff members going, dude, you faded, like you faded in front of me. Like I think an event that big is not, I don't feel fully covered by Endgame itself. You know what I mean? Or even sort of the quick rehash of Spider-Man Far From Home. I feel like that is such a significant event. I feel, especially with Falcon, who's part of the main cast essentially by Endgame. He is a main cast member. Well, by Civil War he's a main cast member, but by Endgame's like, we know you enough that I would have loved to just see that event from your point of view, and see what that does to you in your life, and see your journey, and as you cross paths with Winter Soldier on various missions. It would have been a much better show. You could have still done the relevancy and the wokeness and talked about, the experience of the, unfortunately, the experience of many black people in this country. But I felt it would have been so much more effective seeing that from the point of view of the guy who was one of the people who came back. That to me was like, that's a huge part of this character that you're just not dealing with because you want to move the plot forward. But this is what the TV show really is for, is saying, hey, what happened to that guy? There's a you better believe in the Marvel's Avengers Endgame universe, there's a documentary about what happened to the missing Avengers. Did they all make it? Did they die too? What happened? Remember Falcon? Remember this guy? Remember that guy? There's, in this universe, there must be documentaries about that stuff and stuff. What happened to their families? To me, that they just glossed over. To me, what should have been the core of the show was the reaction to that event, because you can't have a main character in the event who paid the ultimate sacrifice not deal with it, because it was just glossed over too much. And I feel in a way, maybe it's supposed to represent a certain experience, but I think, come on, tell this from the inside. You know what I mean? Tell this from the inside. We gotta see from the inside now. Like, we gotta, to me, you're actually shortcoming the character by making him more symbolic than a character. I think there's a false notion with some storytellers that to tell a story you should be political, but I think if you want to tell political concepts successfully, you have to tell it from the character point of view, not the society point of view, but the character's point of view, and see from their view. Both, you're telling this fictional story, you have to tell the fictional story too, and to not put that there makes the character kind of a weaker character, and it's not the strongest form of storytelling. Like, now Falcon is just the symbol and not the person, whereas, again, this the whole reason I'm saying this is that is how it worked. That was the reason the Captain America movies worked, not because he puts on the star and represents America, but because as a person, he was bullied, he was set aside. Every girl he wanted his best friend, who was much better looking than him. And despite every challenge he has, he chooses to think positively and move forward. And Sam is supposed to imbue some of these exact same qualities. So we need to see it from his point of view, not from, oh well, the white person's here to witness it, and now, you know, Winter Soldier as the witness can step up and be the, this is what you're supposed. No, see it from that character's point of view, because that's how you get people to actually see things, not this didactic, sort of pointing fingers in every direction. You know what I mean? People, we, when we are dealing with each other, see what the other person actually is. You know what I mean? But sometimes that is blocked by a perception. But sometimes it's just not understanding what's going on. So I think what Loki does is it does exactly that. It does exactly what I wanted from both the Monica Rambeau and Falcon. Like, okay, something fantastic just happened to you. Something fantastic happened to you. Okay, and we're over it. But why did it happen? And what does it mean for you to examine your life? You know what I mean? The point of the show is not necessarily to be political, but to be therapeutic. How does the person get through? I think I would say this. The last 2.5 episodes of Falcon do what I feel I wanted from the last 2 episodes of WandaVision. It was like both shows, I think, if you were to mish them together, would be one perfect show. Because you have just character and then all of a sudden action for WandaVision. And then we have lots of action and then all of a sudden character for Falcon. So, action is a weird place to put politics. I just gotta say, if you're gonna make an action-packed show, it's a weird place to put real-life politics. Because it ultimately, the action genre completely has the opposite solution of real life politics. In real life politics, the solution is peaceful communication, but in action, the solution is cracking the other person's neck. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you're presenting two things that don't work together, and it's very confusing for the audience. The audience is just going to realize that the solution is cracking someone's neck and then being didactic to other people, which is what happens at the end of that movie. It's like, okay, you just beat everyone with violence, and now you want to say that everyone should talk to each other. That does not fucking make sense at all. I'm sorry. That makes no sense at all. You just kicked a bunch of ass and saved the day. And now you're saying, we should talk to each other like people. But you don't even know the life stories of the politicians. That senator lady who's also not white could have the exact same journey as you. You know what I mean? And you don't know that. But you're making this gigantic assumption about someone who literally we didn't even see get kidnapped. I didn't see her get kidnapped. I had no idea what she looked like. I didn't know who you were saving. So you're being didactic to a person that we don't even know, and they, like someone in the real position, has to shut up because it's like, well, okay, you're not even talking to me. You're just accusing me of not knowing what I'm talking about. Thanks for the great conversation, Falcon. You know what I mean? I know good writing is often supposed to lead to speeches, but I just think that was a bit ham-handed. And again, the action genre does not jive with political discourse. Politics, the goal is to talk it out. Action is you whoop ass, okay? There's really, you're really messing with me, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You're really messing with me with your mixed messages. What I had wanted from Falcon and the Winter Soldier is to see his immediate experiences after Endgame and really see him coming back to his family. I do feel they were trying to do that, but I really felt like we needed to see the shock and the awe of people being amazed to see their family member return. And if that still somehow led to him seeing how bad it was, what his family was going through, that would be fine. We could, but we need, I think, because that kind of event especially with what we're experiencing with the pandemic, with people being separated from each other that have never had to experience that before, and not going to work and not doing, the pandemic has changed our point of view. I think especially with that, to me, I feel like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I wish, had just addressed that more and more sort of smoothly moved into what it wanted to do. So I just feel like that, man, come on. Like, I want to see the fantastic stuff from our side character's point of view, man. Like, like, I mean, okay, just before I say more about race, I am Samoan, Hawaiian, Chinese, and yeah, white. But I'm a lot of different things going on here. And so, as a mixed person, I see the world from a slightly different point of view. Slightly different. I'm just another guy walking around wiggling here. I'm just another dumbass. And on this show, we're just celebrating my pretentiousness. But, Jesus, as someone who is a person of color, whether you think so or not, I'm like this. I want to see the person of color deal with the fantastic thing. You know what I mean? That's my personal feeling. Like, you know what I mean? Like, to me, the issue with Falcon and the Winter Soldier is it worried about a understandable concern. You want to be the guy in the suit that everyone's supposed to look up to. But to me, it's not about the suit. It's not about whether the star is on your head or not. If you want to be the person that people should look up to, you just have to exemplify it. Period. Falcon should just stand up as Falcon and be Falcon. But that's not what the show is about. The show is about, look, every color can wear the star. Because it's not about your color. But the star is just a star. The story is what makes the star interesting. So you putting on the star doesn't change the story of how that star showed up. It's just a star. And you are a star as Falcon. And to me, Loki does that. Here's a guy who actually is a bad guy. Now, the perception here is not what we're talking about, but also we're talking about perception. We're talking about self-perception. Loki starts off, again, with the immediate effects of what happened after Endgame, where Avengers go back in time. Loki is... they're trying to steal the Tesseract from themselves so that they can use it in their plot to save the universe. And unfortunately, they totally fumble the ball. Loki grabs the Tesseract, boom, gets out of there. And right off the bat, we get Wunmi Mosaku whooping his ass, and I love it. I'm like, especially because in that show, it's not her character. A different character gets this, but a different character in Lovecraft Country enters the time stream and interacts with time-traveling wizards from the future. And she gets to experience a multiverse experience. And in one of them, she's a warrior. And even though it's not the same character, I just thought the fact that they are both in the same show, and her character does change appearance in Lovecraft Country in order to accomplish some things. God, that's just a lot to talk about, Lovecraft Country. But to see her show up in this show, I'm like, it's you! I thought she was fantastic in Lovecraft Country, especially when I found out she was English. I'm like, you're English? Whoa, bro, okay. But then she's American again in this show. I'm like, okay, I would like to hear you with your natural accent, actually. It's I like it. Anyway, so she shows up from Lovecraft Country and whoops Loki's ass. And we go through this great journey of watching Loki be arrested, be judged very quickly. And then at the last minute, Owen Wilson rescues him from being reset. and then takes him into a room and shows him all the spoilers from what he hasn't experienced yet, because this Loki is from 2012, so he hasn't experienced the other 5 movies that he's in yet. So it was really fun to do this, and also Loki is getting to react kind of the same way we did when these things happened, but also he's reacting from our perspective because he's watching his own actions and what they lead to. And they choose to skip over, his what he did to Odin, which is too bad. You know what I mean? And I gotta wonder, did he actually watch it? Did he have the time to watch it while he was there? Because that means, in essence, he is responsible for the sad fates of both of his parents, and even all the trouble with his brother. Watching Loki watch that was a fascinating experience. I like finally, yes, a character study of a nerdy character. I like the fiction. I like the fictional part of this shit. That's what I'm here for. If I want reality, I'll turn on Instagram. Yeah, that's reality for sure. But that's what this show is about. It's from a nerdy perspective. This show is about perspective. It's about looking at your life and looking at your choices and where they lead to, and what are you going to do next. Because I had that situation myself quite recently. I mean, why I like this is partially personal. I was a filmmaker for about 15 years. Freelance for 10, just studying it and doing my thing in those first 5, high school and college and all that. Or is that's like 8 years actually. Anyway, somewhere in there, I've been a filmmaker for 15 years. Didn't make anything you've seen, you know. I was a working guy. I was a blue collar guy, the blue collar freelance filmmaker dude, just paying his bills. But I was also an imperfect person. Sometimes too honest. Uh, sometimes quite pretentious indeed. I was a character of many sorts, and like Loki, caused more destruction than I realized. And at a certain point, my life crashed, and a lot of things happened at the same time. And I had to make a choice of what I was going to be. I was going to keep being the person I was, which was causing more destruction than I meant to. More like the Hulk, really, just kind of off the handle a bit too much. And or I could turn around and be more responsible and stand up for justice. So I decided to try not to be the shitty one and hopefully achieve the other one. And well, I don't know how far I've gotten, but I know I've come a long way. And so, from a personal perspective, having a bad guy look at his life like that, and by Owen Wilson of all people, like, come on, there's only a handful of actors you would want to be the one watching your life with you. And if it was going to be Owen Wilson, like, cool, okay, he has the right sense of humor. I think he'll not, cut me down for everything. And that's what's kind of crazy is that Owen Wilson plays this nerd, this fan of the guy. It's like, no, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of your work. And it's like, what the hell? But also, within that, because he is a master of time, and I have a feeling they still see multiverses. I don't know. I think he kind of knows at the same time as he doesn't know. It's kind of weird. I think there's kind of a Dr. Manhattan-y thing going on with Owen Wilson's character. I don't really know. But I like that he's a fan of Loki, and in very much this episode's kind of a Loki's therapy episode where he can kind of look at himself, and the point of the therapist a long time ago, I had difficult times in high school, and I had a therapist myself. And one of the most beautiful things that the therapist did was not to judge me, and not to be didactic with me, but just to listen, but also to get me to stop lying to myself. Because there would just be things that I would say that I thought in my head were true, but I knew in my heart were things I had reasoned out for myself. And it's like when you're hurt, you put a bandage around it in your mind, and you create justifications that, whether they're true or not, you create justifications to keep yourself going. And over time, those bandages can just snowball until it's so much stuff. It's a lot to unpack. Now, luckily, I was caught early enough that there was not as many bandages around the wheel. But when it comes to the character of Loki, there's frickin', when they talk about a big head, I mean, it's not bigger than Loki's, that's for sure. Even Thanos, is as mad as he is not as egotistical as Loki. So there's something, well, maybe the movie version, doesn't realize he's egotistical. Uh, but, that's just the thing. And so by showing Loki the consequences of his choices, it doesn't necessarily mean he's not going to be a bad guy from here on out, but I think it was just fascinating to see him really hurt for the first time, because he just keeps being smarmy and he keeps doing this, but he does have these small scenes of what seem to be genuine emotion here and there throughout the movies that are like, I want to see a movie about that. What I mean? And thankfully that's what this was. The fantastic thing happened. It's actually not so fantastic, unfortunately, for Loki. And he is now at the point of truly, this is your last, you've had your last warning. This is it. The thing is about to happen. And at the last moment, rescued by a good cop, Owen Wilson, who makes him look at his life. And there's just, again, so many little cards are being thrown out here. This could make him a much worse villain, or it could make him an anti-hero. And by the episode's end, I'm certain, by episode's end, I want him to come out of this as a hero. Because ultimately, he chose the side of good in his last moments anyway. And I think that right there. But what I love is he watches his own demise. So what I've been wondering this whole time is he going to get Thanos first in this show? And when he does, what does that mean? Because it'd be amazing if Loki's been this sort of subpar villain for about 10 years, and he actually becomes the main villain of the next 10 years. That would be really hilarious and very comic book like. I certainly hope they do that with Doctor Doom, because again, as a normie, I only know him from the movies and the cartoons. So I really hope they do that with Doctor Doom. I would love to see a proper Doctor Doom, as much as the genuine nerds who know what the hell he's all about. But yeah, character examining himself. I think anytime there's character in comic book stuff, I'm really drawn in. And truth be told, that's what keeps people in. That's why I created Why It's Great in the first place. When I talked about Jurassic Park, what threads you through that movie is watching Sam Neill's emotional arc. You're not necessarily aware of it. It's not the focus and the star of the movie. The star is the dinosaurs. But that little personal thread is what allows you to be accessible to this guy and understand where he's going throughout the movie. And so when a comic book property decides to commit to just focusing on the character, I'm very excited. I really I'm just a sad little boring geek, and I like shit like that. It's kind of like Stephen King novels. I haven't read a single one, but I love the movies. Firestarter. Whenever you just have seeing how the character got into the situation and seeing them figure themselves out, like, that's interesting and, again, therapeutic. I think the true movie should never be propaganda. A true movie should always be therapy for people. I think that's the real function of art. Even if you look at Power Rangers, I know I'm super tangenting here. It's just because I smoked a little. I'm sorry. But with Power Rangers, a lot of kids grew up watching that show, and there are some sad stories of kids who had hard times. But even though it was fictional, just seeing someone small overcome someone big and more powerful than them saved them time and time again. And I think definitely for me, in times when I was low, watching movies helped me see myself and helped me feel like I could make it to the next day. And that, to me, whenever a movie or property goes that way, I really am happy. I'm really like, thank you. You're going back to what this is all about. It's just about one on one. You know, yeah. So having Loki be this one on one show in what seems to be the beginning of a buddy cop storyline, I'm hoping for that. Again, it could take a nosedive. Having that, I think, from a personal perspective, I think, man, really, that's really juicy. And then, just as a nerd, yes, you referred back to Endgame. Yes, thank you. It's all I can ask for. You know, show me somebody's got to react to what happened in those movies. I'm not down with this whole glossing over it with exposition crap just so we can tell more silly stories. No, that's your juicy story. Bite down on that until there's no more juice in it, and then you can tell some silly stories in between. But that is juicy. That's good stuff right there. You know, that is 5 years of movies and shows by itself. The 5 years, between snaps, that's 5 years of interesting and entertaining storytelling by itself. This is the same way I felt about what was it? Well, I mean, right there, well, WandaVision is an example of like, here's a reaction to those events, but it was just the death of Vision himself. The snap itself was kind of unacknowledged. And in the side character's point of view, that's fine. Whatever. You were such a side character, there's not enough to go off of to worry about you being affected by the snap. You were such a side character, you were on the side. The only reason you were on missions because you had nowhere to live. You were such a side character. You did not have a place. You just hung out in the Avengers mansion because you did not have a place. You were just there to show up for action scenes, like ready. But Sam Wilson had some stuff going on, so I'm like, why don't you have a direct reaction to the snap? Come on, bro. We were with you. We watched you survive Winter Soldier and Civil War. Come on, man. Come on. So having Loki being a direct result of that, I think was great. Um, I felt like this was like Willy Wonka. This was like the Willy Wonka's episode of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The cinematic universe is a fancy word for a show. This is one gigantic TV show with many episodes and multiple two-parters, three-parters, and maybe 4 or 5-parters. Because essentially that was Stan Lee's vision for the comics anyway. He saw them as these soap operas with ongoing storylines that could intersect with each other and have bigger storylines if they wanted. All in the name of fun, but here and there have really great personal stories where people go through things. I think it's referred to in the Spider-Man the movie documentaries. There's an issue that got a lot of kids into comics where Harry Osborn takes some drugs and he thinks he can fly and he tries to jump off a roof, and Spider-Man catches him and says, "What the hell were you doing? What's wrong with you?" And it's the anti-drug issue. And there was a whole issue where the government wouldn't put its comic book association seal of approval, meaning it's okay for kids to read. They wouldn't put the seal on it because of the show. The issue mentioned drugs, and yet the only reason they wrote that issue was because a different department of the government asked them to. So Marvel said, "What the hell? Let's just put it out anyway. We don't need your seal of approval." And so that little rebellion made a comic book that was anti-drugs and got a lot of kids into comics, including some of the writers and illustrators of Marvel Comics itself. But that little personal story, the fact that a superhero steps in not to fight the big baddie, but to help you with your life, I thought that was awesome. Right now I'm getting this weird lighting effect because I have a ring light, but the sun just came up, so now you can see me in very dramatic lighting. I'm just gonna try to stay right here. This is kind of interesting right here. Yeah. No, Jesus. No, I can't really avoid it, so I'll stay right here. But to me, yeah, that stories are about character. Plots are about explosions. So from a nerdy perspective, I really loved the animated sequence where we get the explanation of the timeline and the Time Watcher people. But one nerdy little thing is that Tara Strong, who's the voice of Batgirl from the Batman the Animated Series, does the voice of that little animated video about the Time Police. So that was just like such a great little connection. Not only do we have Wunmi Mosaku from Lovecraft and from Lovecraft Country and Batman v Superman, but we have Tara Strong who played Batgirl. So there's a bat through line going on here. Lots of little nerdy stuff like that. But from a writing point of view, again, celebrating what I've already said. From a writing point of view, I feel like they really did a lot of smart things that allowed them to keep it intimate, but also maintain their budget. Because by keeping it intimate and hoarding those visual effects sequences, you can really put the money properly into where those visual effects are used. So that is essentially what WandaVision did at the beginning. And you see what happens. Television has a really hard time with big budget action. And it's, they made it work for the most part in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think the Dora Milaje fight, dang, yeah, good job. And definitely that first Falcon fight, fantastic. But there's such limitations that if it's television just works better in an intimate scenario. So the fact that they just stuck to the intimacy. Again, this is what I wanted from Falcon. I was like, I know you cannot do Marvel movie level action every single episode. But to me, Falcon and the Winter Soldier should have started with, like what Loki did, this kind of huge reflection on and reaction to everything that happened from Endgame up to me, the first episode of that show, that big action sequence with the Falcon, that should have been the finale, not the beginning. Like, I really felt like we need that from this character who's in this universe. This is what he experienced. So I need to see that. That is what I've been watching for 20 movies, and I feel I'm deserved that. To skip over that, to me, for the sake of a sense of relevancy, I think you're kind of shortchanging what got you here in the first place. The action is only a part of the selling point, but we were following this character. I want to know that guy. This is the guy who's providing therapy for veterans. I want to see the life of that guy. You know what I mean? I mean, through his eyes. And to me, Loki accomplished that by literally forcing us to have just him and Owen Wilson for an entire, however long the episode was, 30 minutes, 50 minutes. It felt like 30. It was what a good time. But that kind of focused writing is something I think, if you want to be a filmmaker, this is what you need to accomplish. You can do the clever, gimmicky stuff of WandaVision, and you can be relevant, like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but pick your point of view. Because this picks the point of view of the arrogant Loki, who, even though he lost, still felt like he was destined for greatness. And, maybe he still is. But it's about shedding that arrogance. It's about moving through whatever level of character development you need to move to get to where you need to go. Now, Falcon is already a clear-headed, great guy. Where do you take that guy? Well, I understand that kind of problem, but you throw him off. He came back 5 years later. 5 years later, his whole life has changed. He had his own life that we didn't see in the movies. And we needed to see the sister just be really shaken by the fact that she's been looking at, a drawing, a set of words on a wall, and not a person for 5 years. And then to have all of that, to me, I do feel that if that kind of event happened, though, society itself would be different. I do think there would be a bigger sense of unity, or a bigger, just think about everything we've gone through the pandemic. And I do think, society has totally changed. Things are changing even more at an accelerated rate. Imagine how it must have, in a society that went through half of itself disappearing. Imagine what that would have done to society. It might make, within the realms of this own universe, things would be different. And I feel like that is what we lost for the sake of a sense of relevancy, and for the sake of trying to keep up with the action of Captain America in the Civil War. You're trying to make that show again. You know what I mean? That's how it felt. It felt like this was really Civil War Part 2, as opposed to being Falcon's story, and that he's Captain America now. But now we've lost your actual storyline. See what I'm saying? So in order to be didactic, we did not actually get to see you as a person. You're just a symbol. So that is my problem. Whereas Loki, he was just the symbol of being the mischievous bad guy. Loki's going now the other way. You know what I mean? So I'm like, wow, Marvel. Okay now. To me, I think Loki, for committing to the character and committing to its point of view, you lock down that budget and you hoard your action, where the action is more mysterious, and they're actually aping Deadpool 2 now. Because this is how Deadpool 2 happened. The bad guy from the future is you, and he's in a cloak, and he's in a shadow, and he's burning fire everywhere. This is from Deadpool 2. I watched that movie. But, it's cool. It's cool. Whatever. Kylo Ren. Whatever the hell you say. It's happened before. It'll happen again. But the point is, we see it. The point of view is what makes solid, good writing. It keeps the structure tight, and it keeps that budget where it needs to go. So when we actually see the city, and there's flying cars and everything, and to me, that was a fantastic effect. That looked like real. That looked like it was real, and that's something we could only achieve a long time ago with practical effects, to have it literally look real. And computer animation has come a long way. If that was computer animated, I assume it was, that looked photographically real. It looked like the light was really hitting everything. That city shot was amazing. And just all the little effects. The fact that this show is really littered with little effects, I think is really fun. The slow motion, choosing to do that while Wunmi is moving around at normal speed. I think that's fun. You're playing with time. You're playing with your gimmick. You pick one gimmick and you really play it to its complete potential usage. That's where creativity lies, not in trying to do everything. I think both WandaVision and Falcon tried to do everything. I understand there was the fear and the need to please the audience, but man, look, like Loki, man, like that's how you got to do it. You keep it focused on that character. Again, like the final 2.5 episodes of Falcon, really just focused on the character, seeing it from his point of view, while still maintaining a certain level of cinema that's really on par with what you're doing on the big screen. I think Loki really, from a technical point of view, by keeping it intimate, keeping that budget down, keeping our locations tight, that's the thing. We don't go to a lot of different locations. We are really just in this police headquarters of time, the Time Police Headquarters, the TVA. I'm sorry, I've been saying it wrong this whole time. I'm going to say it wrong some more. But going through their headquarters, that's really just a handful of sets that we spend the majority of our show in. we use all of our effects to just show flashbacks, but most of that is a lot of compositing, just a shit ton of compositing. Good God. Thank you to the compositor who brought us back our favorite moments from Avengers 2012 and all that stuff. What's interesting is in the beginning of this episode, Loki's reactions to the TVA. I love the little mundane going into like the TSA. They're more like the TSA, but the SWAT version of the TSA. Entering the really long line. And there's only one other guy there, and he has to take a ticket. And the first guy doesn't take a ticket. So spoiler territory here. Spoilers. All spoilers now. He doesn't take the ticket, and Loki does take a ticket. And the first guy, the guard comes in and says, "Show me your ticket so you can pass." And he's like, "I tried to get a ticket. The guy wouldn't let me." And he immediately gets tased into oblivion. Literally just vaporized right in front of Loki. And the guard's like, "Do you have your ticket?" He's like fumbling all over. Like, "Yes." I thought, okay, you're playing this a little big. This feels like it's being played for kids or something. It's playing very big. The comedy, but it was a choice. At first I felt like, is this a TV show? You didn't quite have enough time to really get enough takes, so you kind of just rushed. Is that what's going on here? Because you see it all the time in movies. You see where the time is spent. You see where the time is spent, and it's so big that when we actually get to Loki seeing the flashbacks of other movies, just his scenes, when we see that, he all of a sudden becomes very small. And so this now, because this is a character arc episode, he's got a huge arc to go. He's got to start off the arrogant, cocky, evil Loki that was in 2012, the one we kind of missed, but we're glad he changed, but we kind of missed that guy. And by the end of the episode, he has to be in a dark place, and he has to have transformed somehow, or at least, because it's a TV show, we must see the seeds of transformation. But even outside of that, even if he still decides to be a bad guy later, within this episode, the physical challenge, the external goal, if this is a screenwriting class, we're calling this the external goal. The external goal for Loki is to escape. And he can't. Physically, he cannot escape. He keeps trying to. Everything he does leads him back to the same place. And that's also what Owen Wilson is telling him. Like, you keep trying to win, but you keep losing. Why do you want to conquer people? What exactly are you getting out of it? And Loki says his reasons, which are big, highfalutin reasons. And there's a little commentary thread here. I'm going to take a mini tangent here. In the movie Robin Hood Men in Tights, there's a joke where every time Robin Hood saves someone, he has a dramatic speech about how he's going to take care of everyone and everything's going to be great, and we should believe in peace, and da-da-da, and da-da-da. Very didactic, very, whatever. And that's just sort of a running joke throughout that movie. Now, in the commentary of that movie, Mel Brooks explained that he wrote that joke for a reason. He felt that people who talk like that, whether they're politicians or whatever, people who talk like that are ultimately self-serving. They want to be seen as that kind of person, so they talk like that. And I thought that was fascinating. Now I'm paraphrasing. He doesn't exactly say it like that. If you go back and watch the commentary yourself, you may hear something different. But in essence, that he felt this joke was a commentary on people who talk big like that, who are really just doing that for the effect. And in essence, that's what this episode is about. It's about examining, why do you talk like that? Because you're saying all this big stuff. Why? I want the honest truth. And it takes Loki a long time to be honest. He keeps saying, well, people are weak. They need to be stepped on. They need to be ruled. Choice is the problem. Blah, 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 blah. And he says all of his reasons, but over time, what Owen Wilson is trying to get at is like, that's not your reason. That's a reason. That's not your reason. Why do you want to do that? And the whole episode, Loki fights and he fights, and that's really, that conversation is his internal goal. He's trying to escape, and Owen Wilson comments. What I like about Owen Wilson, this is a character looking at another character and asking a serious question. Why do you do that? Why do you do that? And Loki doesn't want to be honest. That's the real truth. He does not want to be honest. So he uses his external goal as a way to avoid the conversation. And people do this all the time. This is a people thing. This is a person thing. That's why this is therapy. You don't realize you're doing it, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing a bad thing when you do it. You might be doing a good thing while you're doing it. But either way, we make decisions, and sometimes we make these decisions to just avoid things, to beat around the bush. And Owen Wilson is playing the adult. He's got the gray hair. He's a little more mature. He's not bouncing all over the place. Ticket! And Loki at the start of this episode is playing kind of a kid, kind of all over the place. And Owen Wilson is just being an adult and asking a serious, solid, straightforward question. Why do you behave like that? And Loki doesn't have an answer right away. And his external goal serves his internal goal of avoiding the issue. But his internal need is to confront that issue, to become his best self, in essence. Because the sad revelation is given to him by Owen Wilson. He says, you go out, and you were meant to go out and destroy things so that other people could find their best selves. And that is the saddest part. That he keeps failing because his goal is not honest. And because, truth be told, he doesn't deserve it. He does not deserve that win. But his problem is not what he's being honest about. And he comes to that revelation by the end of the episode. Because he says that, one of his arguments against Owen Wilson is that this TVA place is an illusion. It's an elaborate trick for small, weak people to take over big people. And there's kind of a joke in there because this guy finds a bunch of Infinity Stones, more than one of each. And the joke is, oh yeah, we use them as paperweights. They don't work here. Magic doesn't work in this place. And so in a world where magic works, yeah, Loki might be the god. But here he's just another guy wandering around. And faced with that scenario and faced with that revelation that all of his efforts only live to serve making someone else become better, and ultimately, yeah, yeah, you were your worst self, and there needed to be a response to that. You were your absolute worst self, and somebody needed to do something about it. And so that other person stepped up, and you failed like you should have failed. And his heart is kind of broken in multiple ways. Learning that he's responsible for the death and torment of his own parents toward their end, and learning that all he accomplished was making someone else succeed. And he can't even escape. But is that true? So there's a lot going on with this episode. And again, it's just throwing out cards. These could all just be ideas. We'll see in later episodes if any of this actually adds up and pans out. But I think just as a single episode dealing with so much character stuff, I just wanted to celebrate that. And again, like the real life connections, I in a personal way, having gone through therapy, and having to unravel your own bandages and examine what exactly is going on in there. Because he admits, his arc is by the end, he admits, he's like, The goal, I don't like hurting people. The goal is my illusion. I think I feel small and weak, and so I am trying to conquer other people to feel bigger. And we'll see if he's telling the truth here. He's still the god of mischief, but ultimately that's obvious to everybody else. Like literally, in the one of the sad things about his character is even in the Avengers movie, the Avengers are not afraid of him. Each one of them takes a good whack at him and he falls over. So like, okay, bro, you're just like, okay, you're a little stronger, you have some cool gimmicks, but you're just another douchebag. And every single character reiterates that to him. And essentially, this show, this first episode, is an actual conversation about that topic. And the fact that we can have that conversation, but have it surrounded by all this entertainment. Because it really, I'm amazed that when we go through these character moments, the show always cuts to a scenario of fun and entertainment. I'm just like, hell yeah, okay, this is actually how it's done. Like, if you want to see how is it done and how is it done right, first episode of Loki, that's how you do it. That is just top notch, keeping the budget down, keeping it intimate, having a personal story, external goal, internal goal. We have this B plot with a villain who's going around destroying things that everyone assumes is Loki anyway. We all kind of feel like this is just Loki. So either this show, now the question of the show is this a time loop where by the finale we're going to see that Loki was the bad guy the whole time and that this was just Loki becoming a more bad guy? Or by the finale, will he actually be a good guy? Or will he be an anti-hero who's still kind of mischievous? That is the question of the show. And because it leaves us with that question, and it doesn't show us Loki. It's presumed that it's Loki, but it doesn't show us Loki. When in one of the scenes where they're investigating these time crimes that are happening, someone is taking out these SWAT people, these time SWAT people, and stealing their time grenades. And what is this for? What is this all building to? We never actually see the face of the guy. It's presumed that it's Loki, but the fact that we don't see the face makes me wonder, what's going on here. Because if it's Loki, why not just show us it be Loki? And if it is still going to be Loki later, why didn't you show us that it was Loki? To me, that's very interesting. So just as a show, as a single unit of entertainment, I thought it was great that they leave a hanging question at the end. That even though they seem to have answered it, and again, if you've been familiar with time travel stuff and you can basically assume what's going to happen, the show still has the good grace to let you wonder a little bit. So even if the answer is disappointing, I just think this pocket episode is a fine example of writing. I think I forgot. It's Michael Waldron, I believe, is the creator of the show and the writer of this episode, I think. Damn, I just think fantastic writing. Really, this is how it's done. This is how you tell a character story while being entertaining. And there's a little bit of action. Really, they don't do a lot of action in this episode. There's a little bit of action, but just enough. Just enough to be entertaining. And this is how you hide your budget and save your money. This is like how it is done correctly. And telling a story that, again, from the audience point of view, wanting to see, hey, don't tangent off of that thing, bro. I always hate that in superhero movies. Like a character getting amnesia, and like in Spider-Man 3, Harry Osborn gets amnesia. Like, hey. No. You just went through an epic fight where you learned horrible things about your father. Don't have amnesia now so that we don't deal with this for the next 2 hours. Like, what the hell are we watching this movie for? I didn't watch this movie for you to get amnesia. You know what I mean? Like, come on. Like, that, to me, that's why I say that. It's a small thing, it's a silly thing, but as a person actually watching this shit, I'm like, hey, don't do that. I mean, he can still become a better person and have a clearer mind, but don't have him have amnesia to do it. Deal with what's happening in order, you know what I mean? And I appreciate Loki, not tangenting and not trying to skip ahead to get to a particular moment. even if technically that is exactly what's happening in terms of timeline. Um, but so yeah, thank you Loki for doing it right, showing how it's done from a production standpoint. I think really well written and really well handled. From a directing standpoint, again, I thought he played a little bit big in the beginning, but performance-wise, the fact that he starts big and then becomes very small, which again, even that storytelling through performance is not just his character arc, but that is the thematic issue being presented here. The theme is being presented in the performance. That he's acting big because he thinks he's big, because he feels like he's big, because he wants to be big, because he feels small. And when he becomes small, when he actually becomes the size that he actually is, that's when he actually grows. And that's good writing. So yeah, that's my geeking out and shitting on Winter Soldier a bit. I'm sorry, I do hope that those of you who really love those shows and felt like they spoke to you, I'm not trying to take away from your experience at all. This is purely a personal nerdy issue that has everything to do with what I know about movies and what I like about movies, and has nothing to do with actual reality. This is me reflecting on my personal nerdverse and my perspective on how things from a storytelling point of view should be done. That's just what I'm examining. I'm not saying that you can't be woke and you can't be real. I just want it to come from an honest point of view from what the actual show is. You know what I mean? I don't like it when shows pretend to be more than they actually are. I do not like that at all. I feel like it's horribly inauthentic, and hence why we have the rise of podcasts. Not that this is a good one. This is one of the bad ones. You're most likely here purely because of autoplay, accidental autoplay, or something. If you came here by choice. Okay, the sun is dramatically moving. I think it's time to go. So, anyway, great job, Tom Hiddleston. Great job, team. Fantastic work. And thank you very much. And aloha, nerds.